In a recent video, we talked about the worst member of each faction in current-day WWE. But what about the flip side to that? What about the best of every faction? Well, that's exactly what we are going to be looking at right now, starting with the top member of the Judgement Day, Liv Morgan. Now, of course, the members of the Judgement Day have changed a lot over time. Hell, out of the original trio who started the group, Edge, Rhea Ripley, and Damian Priest, none are still there today. But that shouldn't suggest their ranks aren't still strong in 2025, as included within this are the likes of Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, JD McDonough, Raquel Rodriguez, and Roxanne Perez. Still though, when we're picking the best member of the heel faction today, it wouldn't be any of them we'd go with. No, it would be Liv Morgan. Why Liv Morgan? Well, because despite the other members all finding various degrees of success during the Paul Levesque era of WWE, none have ever been the focus of an entire division. And that's arguably something the Morristown native can say, as for the majority of 2024, it felt like the Raw Women's division was centered around her and Rhea Ripley, with Liv being the one holding the gold for most of that time. Obviously then, this has raised her status within the WWE a lot, so much that, even if she is injured now, she's still a focal point of storylines. Yes, the whole introduction of Roxanne Perez into the group in recent weeks seems to be designed to drive a wedge between her and Morgan. And that's meant the former Women's World Champion continues to be talked about regularly on Monday nights, despite the fact she's not physically there right now. But what of another top heel stable on Raw, the one managed by Paul Heyman? Well, for our money, the best member of this group has to be none other than Seth Rollins. Yes, while Braun Breaker is great, quite possibly a future face of WWE, and Bronson Reed is certainly an impressive physical specimen too, in terms of top heels on all of Raw in 2025, Seth Rollins is ruling the roost. Hell, this is exactly why he's the current Mr. Money in the Bank and is more than likely going to be winning the World Heavyweight title soon. And it's also exactly why he'll probably hold that belt for a lengthy period of time after he does win it. That's right, once he returns from injury, the Davenport native is set to be the focus of Raw going forward, all while he's putting on some of the best matches in WWE today. And with his crew of world beaters surrounding him and helping to prop him up, we have no doubt he'll have a much easier time with this than he would have done otherwise. But let's move away from Raw for now and over to SmackDown instead, as it's there we find our next faction and their top member. That's right, it's time for us to talk about the Wyatt Six and Uncle Howdy. Yes, this really should be an obvious one, as while the Wyatt Six certainly have a lot of members to choose from, there's only one leader of the group, and that is undoubtedly the mysterious figure played by Bo Dallas. But then to be fair, he has to be the leader, as he's pretty much the entire reason the faction exists in 2025. After all, it was following the untimely passing of Bray Wyatt in 2023 that his brother Bo felt the need to carry on his legacy by finishing the storyline he'd started, the one involving Uncle Howdy and his crew of 4 other stablemates. Who are these stablemates? Well, they're all people representing figures from Bray's past, with Eric Rowan playing Rambling Rabbit, Dexter Lumis portraying Mercy the Buzzard, Joe Gacy filling the role of Huskus the Pig, and Nikki Cross standing in for Abby the Witch. But while all of these are crucial elements of the stable, and have been ever since they were first introduced in June of 2024, it's undeniable that the most important and best member is Bo Dallas in the role of the leader, Uncle Howdy. So clear as this to us, we'd go as far as to state that if any member of the faction ever does win singles gold in WWE, it will likely be Bo who is the one to do this. Yes, we could very much see a situation at some point in the not too distant future where he's holding something like the United States title. Really, the only question we have left then is, if he does, will this help the Wyatt Six to enact the hostile takeover of the blue brand they seem intent on carrying out? We guess we'll just have to wait and see how things play out in the upcoming months and years. And while we're doing that, we'll eagerly be watching the continued progress of another key faction on SmackDown, the Bloodline, and their best member, Solo Sikoa. Yes, if we'd have done this video a couple of years ago, things would be very different in terms of the Bloodline. Come on now, back then, they were easily the most dominating stable in all of WWE, perhaps the most dominating stable the promotion had ever seen in its decades-long history. And because of that, if we were picking a best member during that period, it would almost certainly have to be Roman Reigns. That said, things have changed in 2025. That's right, all that's left now is Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, JC Mateo, and the newest recruit, Tala Tonga. Hell, even Jacob Fatu, one of the most over characters in WWE today and possible future face of the entire company, has left the heel faction in recent weeks. And that means when we're looking at the best member of the Bloodline 2.0, the only option really is Solo Sikoa. Sure, he may not have met all the expectations which were laid out for him when he first debuted on the main roster in 2022, but he's still the leader of one of the biggest groups in recent memory, even if that group is no longer at its peak. And that means he's the one calling plays whenever something needs done. Is that why Solo is the current United States champion? Almost certainly, as being the top dog, he's always going to make sure he gets his before his underlings get theirs. And it's also why, if any of the current members of the Bloodline were ever going to make it all the way to the top, it would be him. After all, there would already be a ready-made story in the Sacramento native one day challenging, say, Roman Reigns for the big belt. Really, the whole thing would write itself. But if and when that does happen, it'll be something for the future to deal with. Back in the present, however, it's time for us to move on over to our next current-day WWE stable and their best member. So let's do that right now by heading down to NXT this time and looking at one of the newest crews on the block, The Culling, and the man who sits atop the mountain there, Shawn Spears. Yes, they might not have been around for long, but ever since debuting on the developmental brand earlier this year, The Culling have been doing everything they can to stand out from the pack. And this has seen each of their members achieve varying degrees of success. That said, while Nico Vance and Izzy Dame are coming along nicely in their own right, the most successful of anyone in this faction has to be the leader, Shawn Spears. Come on now, it's him who, up until recently, held the North American Championship, a title that he earned by defeating Tony D'Angelo. And even if the Canadian has since dropped this belt, he remains the top member of the Culling regardless. And that's quite an achievement because, for the vast majority of his career prior to this, whether it be his original run in WWE between 2013 and 2019 under the name of Ty Dillinger, or his subsequent time spent in AEW between 2019 and 2023, he was always someone who was playing second fiddle to the bigger stars. Will he ever get that main roster call-up again one day? It seems likely he will eventually. And when he does, it seems just as likely he'll be bringing the Culling up to either Raw or SmackDown with him. The only question at that time will be, will he still have the status of the best member of the group, or will one of the rookies he's currently mentoring have overtaken him? We guess we'll just have to wait and see. One thing we don't have to play the game of wait and see with when it comes to who's the best part of the act, however, would be our next faction, another recent addition to the NXT roster who are currently trying to make some major waves on the scene. Who are we talking about here? Why, Dark State, and their ace, Saquon Sugars, of course. Now this was, on the face of things at least, a difficult one to choose, if for no other reason than because, with the members of Dark State still being all pretty young and for the most part inexperienced, there doesn't seem to be an obvious person who stands out from the pack. Seriously, if we look at 3 out of the 4 members, Dion Lennox, Cutler James, and Osiris Griffin, then we'll see a trio of performers who, while they do have potential, still have a long way to go before they achieve this. But then there's the other member, Saquon Sugars. Sure, he might not have been a name known to many fans prior to the formation of Dark State in February 2025, but if you've been watching the indie scene over the past few years, particularly Deadlock Pro Wrestling, then you'll be all too aware of how great the DC native already is. And that's because it was there, while working under his original name of Lucky Ali, he became one of the top guys in that promotion, so good that at one point he'd actually win their world title and hold on to it for almost a full year. Needless to say then, this meant when he joined WWE, he was already ahead of many of the other signings who were brought in alongside him. And that's also meant, within the ranks of Dark State, he's easily the one who's shown the most promise as of 2025. Come on now, while the group doesn't seem to have an official leader, if we were picking one, it would most certainly be him. And the same would be the case if we were picking one member of the heel faction to eventually break away from the pack and go on to have singles success, whether that success be on NXT or the main roster. Yes, it's easy to see a future not too far from now where Saquon Sugars is holding something like the North American Championship, and then from there using this to segue over to a spot on either Raw or SmackDown. But let's move away from the men for now and over to the women instead, as there is an all-female faction in modern-day WWE, one which is also found on the NXT roster. And if we were to pick a member of Fatal Influence who we felt stood above all others as the best, it would have to be JC Jane. Really though, it's fitting that JC Jane would be the best member of Fatal Influence in 2025, as she's seemingly the leader of the group. Hell, if it weren't for her, there wouldn't be a faction at all. No, after the original incarnation, Toxic Attraction fell apart when Mandy Rose was released by WWE, and then Gigi Dolan turned babyface not long after this, it was left to the lone remaining member, Jane, to rebuild things out of the ashes of what once was. So it was then that Fatal Influence was born, with this group seeing the Florida native take the helm alongside Fallon Henley, all while the young rookie Jasmine Nix acted as backup. And while all of these women have shown a great deal of skill since arriving in the developmental brand, with Henley in particular doing well enough to become a one-time Women's North American Champion, that's nothing compared to the success that JC has had. No, as it stands right now, after beating Stephanie Vaquer for the honor on May 27, 2025, Jane is the current reigning and defending NXT Women's Champion, and that's a belt she no doubt hopes to keep for a long time to come. Obviously then, from a kayfabe perspective, if nothing else, this has to make her the best member of Fatal Influence, and the most likely to go on to even greater things on the main roster one day. Sure, we've no doubt she'll want to bring her teammates with her anywhere she goes, as the three appear to have a strong bond at this point, but that doesn't mean the girl from DC won't be looking to make sure she stays on top all throughout this process. No, we're pretty sure she likes being the ace of her stable, as why wouldn't she? And we're also pretty sure she's got her eye on those world titles currently being held by Naomi and Tiffany Stratton. Honestly, it's only a matter of time before she arrives on either Raw or SmackDown and decides to go after one of them, and when that happens, JC Jane's case for being the top member of Fatal Influence will only be strengthened that much more. But let's move back over to the men again for a second, as that's where our next subject lies, the best member, for our money at least, of one of Raw's most notable stables today, the Latino World Order, the legend that is Rey Mysterio. That's right, the idea that Rey Mysterio would be the best member of a stable at any point in his career should come as no surprise, and that's especially true now when he's at the grizzled old legend stage of his run. Sure, the Latino World Order is a group which has a proud history, what with it first being started in WCW by Eddie Guerrero and all, but if you're talking about Latino stars in the industry today, then Rey might still be the biggest. Of course, that's not to say the other members of the current-day WWE version of the LWO aren't great in their own ways too. No, within their ranks, you have some of the top high-flying mid-card acts in WWE today, with Joaquin Wilde, Cruz del Toro, and Dragon Lee all more than being able to hold their own in a fight. But come on now, how could we choose anyone other than one of the greatest luchadors to ever do it here? No, when compared to Mysterio, the rest still feel like rookies, as this is a man who over the course of his decades-long career has won 3 world titles, wrestled for just about every major promotion there is, and had classic after classic in the process of doing so. Hell, even now in 2025, when his knees should be a fine dust, he's still able to go to a higher level than he has any right to. So for as long as the LWO is a thing, he'll be the guy we think of first. But he's not the guy we'll think of first when we think of our next entry, Legado Del Fantasma. No, when we think of them, we'll think of their best member, Santos Escobar. Yes, the other Latino group of main roster WWE, Legado del Fantasma, is in some ways an offshoot of the LWO at this point, as so many of its members were once a part of that babyface stable, including Santos Escobar himself. But in late 2023, a decision was made to do a split and allow a second heel branch of the group to do their own thing, and so we got this one made up of Escobar, Angel, and Berto. Why aren't we choosing either Angel or Berto as the best member of Legado del Fantasma, especially as they're the ones currently in possession of the AAA tag team titles? Well, while they've no doubt been successful, we'd argue Santos Escobar has shown that much more promise during the time he's been in a WWE ring. After all, there's a reason he won the Cruiserweight title. And there's a reason why, ever since Legado del Fantasma was formed, he's been the one who served as the leader of the group. He's just the most accomplished in the ring. Seriously, if you look at the matches of all 3 men, Santos has regularly shown himself to be the best of the bunch. So for that reason then, we can't consider him anything less than the best member of the stable. And that's a status we don't see him losing anytime soon. No, like with Rey Mysterio and the LWO, we have a feeling that for as long as this heel group is around, Escobar will be its ace. But let's move away from Legado del Fantasma and over to a stable that wrestle over on Raw, a team which goes by the name of American Made. When it comes to the best member of that stable, there can only really be one option, that being Chad Gable. Seriously now, while American Made do have 4 very good performers within their ranks, there's not really much competition for the top spot here. No, even if both Creed brothers are very accomplished amateur wrestlers, their leader is a bona fide Olympian. And even if Ivy Nile has already created some moments for herself inside of the squared circle, she's still not on the level of Chad Gable. Why is that? Well, over the course of the last decade or so, the Minnesotan has already become a 4-time tag team champion across all 3 brands of WWE TV, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. And while he's been doing this, he's regularly been having some pretty great matches. Even as a singles act, he's been able to hang with some of the best of them, and in the process, come very close to adding some solo gold to his trophy cabinet. Sure, he might not have done this quite yet, but even if that is the case, Gable is by far and away the best member of American Made. Come on now, he's the reason the group exists at all, as it was after breaking away from his prior stable, Alpha Academy, in June of 2024 that he formed this new union of heels around him, and from there went on to dominate the Raw mid-card. Really, the only negative we can say about Chad during this run is the fact that he's currently on the injured shelf and so can't be there on Raw every week at present. But then that's something which will change soon enough, and when it does, he'll be reminding us all over again about why he's such an important part of the Red brand these days. The only question at this point is when will WWE decide to pull the trigger on belting him up with some singles gold by giving him the Intercontinental title that he's been chasing for so long. We'll just have to wait and see when this might happen, and while we wait, let's take a look at the faction the Olympian abandoned in order to start his current group, the faction which still exists and still goes by the name of Alpha Academy. Who's their best member? Well, that can only be one person as well, Otis. Yes, let us take you back to late 2020 if we can. Pro wrestling was pretty hard to watch overall on account of there being no fans allowed in attendance, but there was something good which came out of this period, and that was the formation of Alpha Academy, a duo made up of real-life close friends Chad Gable and Otis. Of course, over time though, the ranks of Alpha Academy would change, with both Maxine Dupree and Akira Tozawa being added at one point, all while at a later date, Gable would exit following his heel turn. And this has left us with the way things are today, with the group acting as a trio. Sure, Natalya is currently a tag team partner to Dupree, but that only makes her a satellite member of sorts, not a full-blown part of the crew. So she can't be included when we're talking about the best performer of the group. No, when we're talking about that, we can only talk about 3 people, and while Maxine has come a long way in recent months, and while Akira Tozawa has remained a somewhat featured comedy act, it's very clear that Otis is the top guy within Alpha Academy in 2025. Seriously, he's the one who first formed the stable back at the start of the decade, and he's the one who, out of the trio of members, can call himself a former Mr. Money in the Bank. On top of that, he's the one who held gold as a one-time Raw Tag Team Champion. But what of a group that wrestle over on NXT, that being the No Quarter Catch crew? Well, their best member would have to be Charlie Dempsey. Really though, this should be another obvious one because while the No Quarter Catch crew currently have 2 other solid members in Tavian Heights and Ren Sinclair, it's clear who the real top dog is, and that's the son of the legendary William Regal. After all, it's him who won the NXT Heritage Cup not once, but twice over the last year and a half. And it's him who best fits the ethos of the stable as a group of old school style wrestlers, with this pretty much being his bread and butter, being a Regal and all. Sure, there's always the chance that as the years go on, Tavian Heights finds greater success, maybe even winning a title or 2 himself. He is an accomplished amateur wrestler after all. And it's equally as possible that Ren Sinclair goes from strength to strength in the women's division. But as it stands today, there can only be one ace of the faction, and that ace is the youngster from Atlanta. Really, if the NQCC were to break up imminently for whatever reason, we imagine it would be Charlie Dempsey who would rise the highest as a single star, partially because he has his dad putting in a good word for him behind the scenes, and partially because he's also just the most experienced of them all at this stage of the game. Truly then, the world is the rookie's oyster, just as it is for everyone else we've looked at today, because as the best members of their respective factions, they each have the door open for them to go on to even greater things before all is said and done.